In the opening scene of the movie, we are introduced to a South Korean village, where a clear distinction exists between the affluent elite and the servant class, embodying wealth and servitude. We witness the entrance of our main protagonist, Bang Ya, a famous businessman. He encounters a renowned writer who is impressed by his character and expresses his desire to write a biographical book about his life. On the other hand, Bang Ya, courteously, believes that he is not a good subject for a novel. However, the writer, determined, insists that he is the town's most glamorous gangster, and any writer would like to write about him. Initially hesitant, Bang Ya eventually agrees to put his exceptional life, full of impressive twists, into words. Attentive to every detail, the writer lends his ears to Bang Ya as he starts to narrate his tale. The writer is soon taken aback when he learns that Bang Ya used to be a servant, a royal aristocrat's servant. He used to share a room with a house guest, Mr. Ma, who greeted him warmly within the confines of his humble abode. A flashback transports us to a dimly lit room, where Bang Ya is having dinner with Mr. Ma and his servant. Despite being long in the tooth, Mr. Ma always teases his servant, trying to seduce her. However, the girl, wise beyond her years, is aware of his attempts. Instead, her eyes are fixated on Bang Ya, but the latter isn't interested. Soon after her departure, Mr. Ma questions Bang Ya about his master, wondering whether he is being nice, which Bang Ya confirms, appreciative of his kind gesture of providing him with clothes. In the following scene, at a lavish gathering, we depict Mong Ryong, Bang Ya's master, enjoying a great time with his distinguished friends. Bang Ya confesses that his job wasn't a bed of roses, but he was still doing his best to earn his daily bread. All of a sudden, a captivating woman graces the stage, capturing all men's attention with her delicate dance moves. Attracted by her charm, Bang Ya approaches Hyang Dan, who serves as a maid in the household of his master, wondering about the dancer's identity, only to learn that she is the owner's daughter Chun Hyang. Upon the completion of her performance, the audience erupts into applause, praising her elegance. Hastily, Mong Ryong demands Bang Ya arrange a meeting with her. Ever obedient, Bang Ya follows Chun Hyang to her quarters, informing her that his master longs for a word with her, and complimenting him for his handsomeness. However, he is vehemently rejected by Chun Hyang's servant, who urges him to leave the room. Soon Mong Ryong rushes in, slapping Bang Ya on the face and pretending that he never sent him to Chun Hyang, in an attempt to impress her with his bravery, claiming that he was too kind to his servant. On the other hand, Bang Ya remains silent, astonished at the turn of events. To apologize properly, Mong Ryong extends an invitation to Chun Hyang for tea. Much to his irritation, another admirer of Chun Hyang joins the room, calling the tune for her to dance for him, but she turns him down flat. Pushing her to the limit, Mong Ryong intervenes, defending the young lady. They soon engage in an argument, but Mong Ryong is no match for the confrontation. Therefore, Bang Ya with a sense of duty steps in and sends the man packing, to everyone's amazement. Little does Bang Ya know that he made a splash with Chun Hyang. Later on, we bear witness to Bang Ya recounting the events of that night to Mr. Ma. The latter expresses his worries since he robbed his master of the chance to show off and seduce Chun Hyang, believing that it could cause him troubles, eventually firing him from his position. Concerned, Bang Ya seeks Mr. Ma's wise advice. Mr. Ma, ever helpful, prompts him to get another word for his master with Chun Hyang as soon as possible. Wondering about how he can approach such a hard mission, Mr. Ma resolves to teach Bang Ya the appropriate techniques, since he is naive and narrow-minded about getting a girl. Mr. Ma's history of temptation speaks for itself. Therefore, he advises Bang Ya to test the waters with Hyang Dan first, walking back and forth in front of her to make her confused. Then, all of a sudden, he needs to lay a finger on her, much to Bang Ya's bewilderment, believing that she won't let him do that. However, Mr. Ma assures him that she will bend over backwards for him. In the ensuing sequence, we catch sight of Chun Hyang's mother sitting along with her daughter and her servant, Hyang Dan, discussing Bang Ya's bold act, holding him in high regard as a special man. Shortly after, Bang Ya enters the scene, addressing Hyang Dan and convincing her to deliver the message to her master. They have a meeting with Mong Ryong the following day by the waterfall. Sensing her hesitancy, Bang Ya takes a leaf out of Mr. Ma's book and decides to touch her intimately, much to his surprise when he discovers that Hyang Dan takes the bait and agrees to convey the message. The next scene paints a picture of the two masters engaging in a conversation by the waterfall, cementing their bond, whereas Bang Ya and Hyang Dan stay in the wings, cooking a meal, discussing the difference between their level and the aristocracy's skin-deep life. Shortly after, their masters join them to eat. Impressed by the delicious meal, Chun Hyang sings Bang Ya's praises for his cooking skills. She goes the extra mile commending his strength at the fight the other day with the nobleman. On the other hand, envious, Mong Ryong can't hold a candle to Bang Ya, and keeps belittling his servant. Mentioning Mr. Ma, he reveals that Bang Ya resides with a dishonorable man, claiming that he taught him naughtiness, dragging his name through the mud. Influenced by Mong Ryong's words, Chun Hyang turns a cold shoulder to Bang Ya, and leaves with her servant to take a stroll around the waterfall. On the other hand, Bang Ya, biting his tongue, swallows his master's accusations with silence. Suddenly, Chunhyang slips and loses her shoe in the water. Upon hearing her screams, both men leap into action. It turns out that she sprained her ankle. Mong Ryan, in an attempt to help, adds insult to injury by aggressively pushing her ankle, much to her pain. Bang Ya tries to intervene, asking his master to give it a rest, but in vain. After spotting her shoe, Bang Ya dives headfirst into water and retrieves it in front of his master. He gently hands Chunhyang her shoe after wiping it, eliciting admiration from Chunhyang for his thoughtful gesture. Following this, Bang Ya ends up taking her under his wing by carrying Chunhyang on his back on the way home. She complains about her damp clothes from Bang Ya's wet clothes. However, turning a deaf ear, Bang Ya tells her that she can walk if she wants to. Wondering about his plain language, Bang Ya informs her that she is not a noble, and he shows her respect in front of his master only. They engage in a lively conversation along the way, breaking the ice and getting to know each other. In the subsequent scene, we find Bang Ya shouldering the burden of carrying his master's belongings. Mong Ryang believes that he will win Chunhyang's affection by playing hard to get. Wasting no chance to devalue his servant, he declares that his skills are superior, looking down his nose at Bang Ya, much to the servant's rage. Later on, Bang Ya seeks refuge in Mr. Ma's companionship. Questioning his skills in seducing women, Mr. Ma, imparting pearls of wisdom, reveals a secret. A man doesn't necessarily need to be handsome or rich, he needs to read between the lines instead. At that precise moment, Bang Ya confesses that he desires Chunhyang badly, admitting that, despite his master's nobility, he doesn't deserve such a gracious lady. Sensing his deep affection towards Chunhyang, Mr. Ma promises to help him steal her heart before Mong Ryan. He takes on the responsibility to guide Bang Ya, showing him the ropes. He teaches him the appropriate position to sit down, and how to act irresistibly to earn her love. In their following encounter by the river, Bang Ya invites Chunhyang to sit down by the river. Recalling Mr. Ma's pieces of advice, and applying them, they end up close to each other, on the brink of a kiss. Following this, Bang Ya returns home on cloud 9, delivering the good news to Mr. Ma, appreciative for his guidance. Little does he know that his delight won't last long. Mr. Ma soon informs him that Chunhyang wrote a romantic letter for Mong Ryan, and he was able to read it. She invited him for some late-night festivities. Much to Bang Ya's grief, he is unable to fathom that Chunhyang engaged in similar activities. On the other hand, gathered on the table, Chunhyang's mother admits that she wrote the letter, and assures her daughter that Mong Ryan will come running like a bat out of hell towards her. However, Chunhyang looks uninterested, prompting her mother to question about what happened between her and Bang Ya. Chunhyang expresses her weird feelings once he started looking at her shoulder when he was laying down, much to her mother's astonishment, skeptical about his knowledge of the staring from behind technique. Mong Ryang joyfully accepts the invitation and makes a beeline for Chunhyang's house, determined to spend a delightful time with her. After spending the night with her, we depict Mong Ryang the next morning, wearing his heart on his sleeve to Bang Ya, reminiscing about their intimate moments, leaving Bang Ya seeing red. Before returning home, Mong Ryang suffers from a stomach ache, urging his servant to help him. Subsequently, when Bang Ya recounts the whole conversation to Mr. Ma, they both smell a rat, convinced that his master lied about him, for if he had indeed spent affectionate moments with Chunhyang, his stomach would be fine. Wondering about the next step, Mr. Ma lights a fire under Bang Ya to go and get his beloved Chunhyang first. Later that night, Mr. Ma assists Bang Ya with sneaking into Chunhyang's room while she is asleep. Once in, Chunhyang wakes up in terror, urging him to depart immediately, otherwise she will scream. Determined to win her love and devotion, he stands his ground and begs her to calm down, or he will be beaten to a pulp if they catch him. Chunhyang curiously questions his reasons for reaching out to her in the late hours of the night. Bang Ya, without a shadow of a doubt, reveals that he is yearning for her and wants to secure her affections before Mong Ryan. Following Mr. Ma's techniques, Bang Ya starts to touch her out of desire. Chunhyang initially fights him, but ultimately succumbs to his caresses. With their bodies intertwined, they share intimate moments full of longing and lust. After spending a pleasurable night under the same roof with his sweetheart, Bang Ya returns home with sadness written all over his face. He reveals to his companion that Chunhyang forced him to sign a document in order to bring his master back to her again. In the following few sequences, we depict both servants sitting alongside each other while their masters make love in the next room, much to Bang Ya's outrage. Afterwards, Chunhyang, in an attempt to soothe his ruffled feathers, informs him that her mother obliged her to be with his master, believing that she should marry a wealthy man, whereas her heart aches for Bang Ya. The latter, disappointed, ignores her for a moment, before noticing tears streaming down her face, revealing her sincerity. Thirsting for each other, they end up engaging in passionate lovemaking, kissing each other fiercely, sealing the night with unforgettable moments. In the ensuing scene, Mr. Ma, with a grave expression, warns Bang Ya about his forbidden fruit with Chunhyang, confessing that her mother is a strict woman who would make his life a living hell if she found out. However, Bang Ya, while battling his inner demons, fails to keep a lid on his emotions. His devotion towards Chunhyang is palpable in the air. Later, Bang Ya learns that his master is leaving to Seoul to pursue his studies. Mong Ryung orders Bang Ya to recover the promise letter, which conveys his intention to tie the knot with Chunhyang. Ever dutiful, Bang Ya walks on eggshells as he sneaks into Chunhyang's room searching the drawers, but Chunhyang catches him red-handed. She soon finds out that Mong Ryung is cutting ties with her, but much to her sorrow, she realizes that Bang Ya is accompanying him too. She saves Bang Ya from a world of hurt by handing him the right promise letter, admitting that her servant, Hyang Dan, tried to pull the wool over her eyes. Pledging that he will return in a heartbeat for her, Chunhyang assures that she will be holding the fort. After retrieving the letter, Bang Ya delivers it to his master and leaves for a moment of relief. Little does he know that the letter is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It reveals the secret relationship between Chunhyang and his servant. Moreover, his palm's print serves as a binding signature, sealing the deal to assist his master in marrying Chunhyang. When Mong Ryung uncovers his servant's disobedience, he decides to give him the boot with no explanation. Much to Bang Ya's delight, he will now remain close to his beloved Chunhyang. In the following scene, we learn that Bang Ya starts working under Chunhyang's mother's wing. Describing them as the most wonderful days in his life, Bang Ya reunites daily with Chunhyang, sharing love and passion, while her mother keeps a blind eye on their secret encounters. We witness their love blossoming with each passing day. Next, Mr. Ma falls sick, prompting Bang Ya and Chunhyang to take care of him. Experiencing severe coughs, Chunhyang rushes to get him the adequate medicines, leaving them both having a private conversation. Bang Ya confesses that he is not at ease with his relationship with Chunhyang, sensing that something will cut off their bond. Shortly after, they hear applause and cheers outside, much to their curiosity. Once she walks in, Chunhyang informs them that Mong Ryung passed the test and is officially a royal inspector. Bothered, Bang Ya notices her delight with the news. On the other hand, on graduation day, Mong Ryung insults the royal eunuchs, a mistake that leads him to a lower position. He is appointed to assist the regional magistrate in his duties. The magistrate, in an attempt to make him feel better, confesses that he only worked hard to sow his wild oats. Considering his high position, he can sleep with all the women of the town, revealing that his aims are clear and he is not seeking anything else. In response, Mong Ryung invites him to his hometown, convinced that he will meet more than his match among the exceptional women there. In the following scene, we find Chunhyang meticulously reading herself to meet Mong Ryung. However, her mother, skeptical, acknowledges her happy relationship with Bang Ya, and despite her desire to see her daughter marry a distinguished man, she still believes that happiness surpasses material considerations. But Chunhyang, with eyes full of tears, confesses that perhaps she isn't as happy as she appears with Bang Ya. Subsequently, Mong Ryung arrives in his hometown. While having a meal at a bustling restaurant, he expresses his amazement at the major transformation of the place. Much to his surprise, he learns that Hyang Dan is the owner. Later, at her place, Hyang Dan reveals that Chunhyang and Bang Ya are currently in a relationship with each other. After her master fired her, she worked diligently until she was able to own the restaurant, turning it into a gold mine. Their conversation gets more intimate, and they both end up in each other's embrace, falling head over heels. In the next morning, we depict Mong Ryung, along with the magistrate, conversing about the latter's fruitless quest to find a special woman. Still bearing a grudge towards Bang Ya, Mong Ryung sets him a sly fox's plan. Upon questioning him about Chunhyang, Mong Ryung reveals that she is playing hard to get. Therefore, the magistrate needs to read her the riot act and impress her in order to fulfill his burning desires. The magistrate, on the other hand, approves of Mong Ryung's idea, describing it as fit as a fiddle. Following this, while Bang Ya is found lost in his work, Mong Ryung shows up, eliciting both surprise and annoyance. However, Bang Ya greets him with open arms. Mong Ryung requests seeing Chunhyang, but Bang Ya informs him that she is under the weather and is unable to meet anyone. He reminds him that he left her high and dry, therefore, he has no right to poke his nose into her life after all these years. Believing that Bang Ya grew insolent, Mong Ryung insists on his request, but Bang Ya warns him with a menacing tone, asking him to mind his manners, considering his new position now. Eventually, after informing her about Mong Ryung's presence, Chunhyang rushes to meet him for a private conversation. Upon her return, Bang Ya spots a wide smile on her face, raising his hackles and making him doubt her feelings. Later that night, they all gather at Chunhyang's house, engaging in revelry, including the magistrate. While everyone is whooping it up, Bang Ya approaches the magistrate to serve him. Seizing the opportunity, he requests seeing Chunhyang. Much to his fury when he informs him about her sickness, he becomes aggressive. At that precise moment, Chunhyang walks in, shyly apologizing for her inability to sing. Praising her beauty and considering her health condition, he demands her to sit next to him and pour his drink, a request met with stony silence. With a serious tone, Chunhyang tells him that she is not the hired help of anyone. In a fit of rage, the magistrate slaps her forcefully, causing her to collapse to the ground. Determined to slap her again, Bang Ya pulls the magistrate aside, pleading for mercy for her. In response, the magistrate flies off the handle on Bang Ya by beating him with a tea kettle. Then he instructs Chunhyang to be imprisoned. With no choice left, Bang Ya rushes towards Mong Ryan, asking for his help in releasing Chunhyang. However, Mong Ryan reminds him of the day he came back when he warned him not to get involved, wondering about his change of mind. Asking for forgiveness, he admits that there's no one able to intervene and save Chunhyang but him. In the next sequence, Bang Ya, with a heavy heart, visits Chunhyang in the town's jail. He promises her that he will get her out soon, despite having little external support, prompting Chunhyang to burst into tears and hug him tightly. The following day is the day of the festival, when everyone adorns their stunning clothes, dancing synchronically to the soft music, under the sight of the magistrate. On the other hand, Bang Ya looks perplexed, awaiting Mong Ryung's arrival. Seizing the appropriate moment to retrieve himself from the crowd, the magistrate sneaks through a back door into Chunhyang's room, where we depict her handcuffed. The magistrate approaches her in an attempt to touch her, but, ever stubborn, he hits her several times. He gropes at her, and unwaveringly, he starts removing her clothes, when all of a sudden, he hears chaos outside. He immediately rushes towards the courtyard, where he discovers Bang Ya pleading for Chunhyang's pardon, only to be met with a barrage of blows from the guards, along with his comrades who sought to intervene. Fortuitously, the royal inspector and his agents make a huge entrance, catching everyone off guard. They, along with Mong Ryan, who was never demoted, but rather laid a trap, swoop in to expose the magistrate's misdeeds. The corrupt official is caught red-handed and swiftly put behind bars. With his face covered, Mong Ryan orders to restrain Chunhyang's hands on the stock, willing to torture her for being a pleasure girl. Screaming out of pain, Bang Ya, unable to bear his beloved Chunhyang getting hit in front of everyone, pushes through the crowd and falls on his knees, begging for her release, revealing that she is indeed married. When Mong Ryung asks Chunhyang if she is married, she vehemently denies the false claim, considering Bang Ya a mere servant in her house. Enraged, Mong Ryung grabs a stick and starts beating him on the head ruthlessly. Suddenly, Chunhyang, with tears streaming down her face, halts him, confessing that her lover left her after asking her to keep a promise letter. It is indeed the letter in which Mong Ryung declared his intention of marrying her years ago. She takes a knife out and realizing that Chunhyang was awaiting his comeback after all these years, he loses his composure and takes her into his hands, crying a river. He confesses that his intention was merely to test her, but never cause her harm. Barking at the moon in grief, he admits that he will never forgive himself if she passes away, revealing that he became royal inspector to impress her. In the meantime, Bang Ya is caught by Mong Ryung's agents, watching his lover covered in blood from afar, his heart bleeding. Following these sad events, Bang Ya's sorrow is a never-ending story. We find him behind bars when Mr. Ma pays him a visit to soothe his wounds. He informs him that things have gotten more than good for Mong Ryan, and he even got promoted by 2 grades. Mr. Ma wonders whether Chunhyang betrayed him. That is why she refrained from coming and seeing him, a statement met with denial from Bang Ya. Before departing, Mr. Ma advises him not to cry over spilled milk, or beg any other woman to stay. Soon, we depict Bang Ya combing his hair when Chunhyang enters the scene. She is now healthy and sane. She reveals that she told him about their plan when she hugged him in jail, blaming him for his deeds despite acknowledging the truth. Bang Ya confesses that he doesn't fully trust Mong Ryan, as well as the magistrate who kept threatening her life. He was concerned about her well-being, which is why he intervened. With tears in her eyes, as she departs, Bang Ya halts her, dropping a bombshell on her, a revelation that turned her world upside down. He confesses his deep love and devotion towards her. Recognizing his low status as a servant, and despite having no right to fall in love with her, he eventually falls head over heels, much to his dismay when met with silence. In the next sequence, we discover Mong Ryung riding a horse, showing off downtown, and preparing himself to depart for the capital, accompanied by Chunhyang. Much to his surprise, Chunhyang insists on bringing Bang Ya along with them. Mong Ryung, initially hesitant, eventually accepts her request, and after she threatens to expose the ploy, they just execute it. Little does she know that she made the right decision. The following few moments share the joyful atmosphere between the three, Bang Ya, Chunhyang, and Mong Ryung as they play together. However, Bang Ya is the one in pain, seeing his lover's laughter with another man. Intentionally, Mong Ryung hits the ball out of the park, therefore he demands Bang Ya retrieve it immediately, leaving him the space to execute his cunning plan. Soon, when Bang Ya disappears between the trees, Mong Ryung feigns spotting a beautifully weird fish, prompting Chunhyang to join him out of curiosity. At that precise moment, Mong Ryung throws her in at the deep end. Bang Ya, witnessing the scene, without any hesitation, jumps in to rescue her, despite Mong Ryung's attempts to stop him. Bang Ya successfully saves his lover, carrying her on his back as he makes their escape. Back to the present moment, Bang Ya reveals that Mong Ryung is still going after them, sending people to catch them. The writer's mouth drops in awe as he listens to his exceptional tale. He holds him in high regard for his ability to give them the slip for such a long period of time. Bang Ya accompanies the writer to the backyard, where Chunhyang is depicted immersed in playing with dolls. With immense sadness in his voice, he reveals the heartbreaking news that she survived, but lost her marbles, causing her to act like a little girl, much to the writer's grief. The latter assures him that he will write a great tale entitled The Love of a Servant, with Bang Ya as its hero. However, Bang Ya refuses, not wanting to steal someone else's thunder, and demands instead to beautify the story. He reveals that Chunhyang always waited for Mong Ryan, desiring to spend the rest of her life with him. Therefore, he instructs him to write a happy ending, allowing Chunhyang to finish her fairy tale, instead of mentioning him, for he believes that he is the unsung hero deep down in his heart. He asks him to name it, The Story of Chunhyang. The snow starts to fall, adorning the scene with a touch of romance. Bang Ya picks up Chunhyang on his back and sings her favorite song, while she swings her head playfully. Bang Ya suggests that this scene should also be included in the story, but Mong Ryan takes his place instead. We therefore reach the end of the movie with a hint of sadness. None of the characters found true happiness. But amidst the tragedy, Bang Ya's love for Chunhyang persists. Holding her tightly and caring for her well-being is a testament to the enduring power of devotion. We are left with an unforgettable lesson. Greed and betrayal can lead to destruction. Therefore, we should remain true to one's principles and appreciate human connections over material gain.